We're talking about how brains develop, how deafness affects it, and what we need to do to help children with hearing loss to develop healthy, capable lives, capable brains. One definition of mental health from Daniel Siegel is a well-integrated brain that is able to adapt to its environment flexibly, maintain stability, generate adequate energy to deal with task demands, and to regulate its arousal by itself, as well as to be able to be regulated and soothed by someone else. This occurs through the process of attachment, through interaction with parent and infant through the early stages of their life. So let's talk about attachment. A definition of attachment is that attachment is an inborn drive to seek closeness with a protective other, a parent, a caregiver, a teacher, a partner, a spouse. We are biologically wired to attach. We're driven to be in relationship. When we're in a healthy relationship, we do better. When our significant relationships are going well, we do better. When our significant relationships are not doing well, we're out of sorts until we can get them going well again. This is an experience that most all of us have had. Many people will stay in unhealthy and even destructive relationships, not consciously, but unconsciously, because it's better than being alone, even if it kills us. We are driven to connect to others. The brain is a social organ. The structure and function of the brain is to engage with other people, with other brains. And it engages with other people in order to shape this young developing brain over time to shape its activity in the present and in the future. How one brain interacts with another brain has important effects on how that brain develops. Social interactions are one of the most important forms of experience that helps shape how this emerging brain gets organized. There's an ongoing study called the Minnesota Longitudinal Study of Parents and Children, which has been going on since 1975. It's currently in its 36th year, I believe. And they're focusing on social relationship experiences, how people think about their experiences, the risk and protective factors, and issues of change that impact developing brains. The findings from the MLSRA are that areas of development are directly impacted by the attachment process, including areas of cognition, social skills, health, emotions, and stress tolerance. The study also found that attachment security with a primary caregiver in infancy predicted important aspects of adjustment and functioning throughout childhood and into adulthood. Children who had problems in their early relationships, who have insecure attachments, they looked at them over the lifespan and found that in adulthood, they had significantly more problems with their health. They weren't as successful in life. They had more problems with addictions, violence, mental health issues, depression, anxiety. So early secure attachment relationships are critical to helping the growing brain, the growing infant, emerge into young adulthood in a very healthy way where their body can function well, where they can manage life well. Securely attached children have a greater sense of self-agency, a sense that they can affect their world positively, that they can affect change for themselves, that they're not victims in the world. They were better emotionally regulated, and they had a higher sense of self-esteem. Insecurely attached children had problems with emotional regulation, relationships with themselves and others, and worse physical health. Whether a child grows up happy, joyful, able to enjoy life, able to learn, able to engage in the world, or whether they grow up unhappy, anxious, irritable, rigid, inflexible, problems with health, with mood, with relationships, is all majorly influenced by their early primary relationships with their adult caregivers. There are three main, so the attachment process occurs between the ages of 0 and 4. And there are three main things that come out of this process of attachment. One is the child develops their lifelong patterns of relationship that are either secure or insecure. It's also called attachment patterns. They also come out developing beliefs about themselves, other people, relationships, and the world. And then they also come out of that period with their self-regulation, their emotional regulation abilities either developed or not developed. The attachment patterns, there are two broad categories, secure and insecure. And insecure has three different subtypes: dependent, avoidant, and disorganized. The children who are securely attached are able to engage in relationships. They are able to calm themselves. They're able to be calmed by others. Children with insecure attachment patterns, and we don't say that a child is insecurely attached. It's actually the relationship. So I have two parents, and I can have one parent who themselves are securely attached and will develop a secure attachment with me, and we have a securely attached relationship. Another parent who is insecurely attached, maybe avoidant, they don't do relationships, then our attachment pattern will be avoidant. That between us, our relationship would be described as an avoidant relationship. So I can have different patterns of relationship depending on who I'm in relationship with. And the upside of this, the positive news in terms of neuroplasticity, that the brain changes with experience, is I can grow up with significant attachment difficulties, be insecurely attached, avoidant, or insecure, and later in life have experiences with someone who's more securely attached, which will heal my attachment difficulties, create new pathways in the brain, and I will then have what's called earned secure attachment. And I will exhibit patterns of behavior and relationship patterns that look just like someone who's securely attached. So it changes based on our experiences. Mary Main developed a study called the Strange Situation to look at and identify different patterns of attachment between child and parent. And what she did was she had a parent and a 1-year-old child come into a room, and the child would engage in play, and they would have a stranger sitting in the room. And at some point, the parent would get up and leave, and they would watch how the child reacted. But more importantly, they watched to see how the child reacted when the parent came back. So it's really to look at what the relationship is like in terms of what the child does when they're in a stress state. They intentionally stress these children. So most of the children would get upset when the parent left and cry and stop playing. The parent would come back into the room, and a child who was securely attached would go seek out their parent. They would climb into the parent's lap, and they would be soothed and calmed by the parent, and then they would go and play again. So the securely attached child was distressed when the parent left, but they were able to be calmed by the parent, resettle their nervous system, re-engage and play, and safe enough to go off and do what they wanted to do. The insecurely attached children were very different. The avoidant attached child would, when the parent left, they didn't really notice. It didn't really bother them much. When they came back, they didn't seek the parent out for comfort. If they did get upset, they took care of it by themselves. The child with an avoidant attachment pattern of relationships learns that they can't count on the adult, that they're really on their own and they have to take care of themselves. It's not conscious, but from the pattern of relationship and experiences with their parent, they learn that they're essentially on their own. So those kind of children or adults, those of us who are that way as adults, it's like we're an island. Don't need anyone. I got it covered. Thanks, I'm good. The child who's insecurely attached, anxiously attached, they cling. So their parent, in the strange situation, their parent leaves the room, child gets upset, parent comes back, and the child then would go to the parent for comfort, and they couldn't easily be settled. And then they didn't leave the parent. They didn't go back and re-engage in the play. They just stayed. They're clingers. These are kids or adults who cling. They're real anxious in their relationships. They're fearful that they're going to be left, and so they cling and hold on. And they can't achieve a sense of safety and security, like, you're here, I know you're here, even when you go away, you're going to come back and things are good. They are chronically fearful that their needs aren't going to be met, that they're not going to be taken care of, and so when they attach in a relationship, they hold on. The most harmful kind of attachment relationship or pattern is the disorganized attached. Our prisons are filled with people who have disorganized attachment. And this child is one that would have a parent that has their own trauma, has problems with rage, they're not present, maybe they have addictions issues. And the child with this pattern, the parent leaves the room, child gets upset, parent comes back, and the child initially goes towards the parent because they are biologically wired to seek protection from the caregiver, from the parent. So a part of their brain says, go towards, and they do. But then all of a sudden, another part of their brain says, whoa, that person's dangerous. And so they stop. And you see with these kids that they're in such severe distress. They're going towards, they're going away, they throw themselves on the floor, they tantrum, they bite themselves. So there's this biological paradox in their brain. Go towards, run away. And it really affects their ability to connect. Another outcome of attachment are internalized beliefs. From our relationship, from what's reflected back from our parent, when we look in our parent's face, if what is reflected back, that they adore us, that we're valuable, that they absolutely love us, that they are there for us, we internalize that, and that sticks to us. And we develop beliefs about ourselves, and these are securely attached children, or children who have securely attached relationships. They develop beliefs about themselves that I'm worthwhile, I'm lovable, I'm valuable, that I'm worth loving. They also develop beliefs about other people and the world and relationships. And children with secure attachment patterns develop a belief that relationships are worthwhile, they're worth engaging in, that good things come from them. And they also develop beliefs about the world, that as crazy it is, they can develop a belief that the world is essentially a good place, and it's a place a place worth venturing out in, and that I can have experiences, and I can, even if bad things happen, good things will happen too, and the world is worth going into. Children who have insecure attachment patterns, they have a really negative self-concept. I'm broken, I'm damaged, I'm unlovable, I'll never have a successful relationship. There's something basically wrong with me. These kids, they don't get reflected back from the gaze from their parent, how special, how important they are. They might get reflected back that they're a pain, that they're a nuisance, that they're problematic. Some of these kids are told, you ruined my life. Or they see it in their parents' faces, their parents struggling with stressors and financial difficulties, poverty, trauma, and children are egocentric. They're the center of the universe. And so whatever's happening, they interpret it as being about them. And so when they look in their parents' faces, and even if the parent's stress has nothing to do with this child, the child internalizes, there's something wrong with me. I'm not okay. I'm not valuable. I'm not lovable. I'm broken. I'm damaged. A lot of these kids will develop a sense of toxic shame. Shame is real different than guilt. Guilt says I did something wrong. Shame says I am wrong. To my core, I am wrong. There's a degree of healthy shame. Healthy shame prevents us from going and robbing a bank or punching someone out or running down the street naked. Toxic shame says, to my core, I am diseased, I am broken, I am bad. And shame is one of the most difficult emotions for us as humans to tolerate. And we will do anything at all, to have our shame not be witnessed, not be seen. So a consequence of that is that we can't engage in relationships. Because if I let you too close, you're going to get to know me. And if you get to know me, you're going to see just how damaged and broken I am. You're going to see deep inside me the blackness. And so I have to keep people at bay. I can't let you know who I am. Toxic shame is one of the really destructive outcomes of problematic attachment patterns. And the last outcome of the attachment process is regulation, both self-regulation and what's called interactive regulation. Self-regulation is the ability for me to soothe and calm myself, and interactive regulation is the ability for me to be regulated and soothed by someone else in relationship. Children who have a secure attachment pattern are able to do both. They're both able to regulate themselves emotionally, and they're able to let someone else do it. They're able to engage in a relationship and receive comfort and soothing and protection from another. Children who have an avoidant attachment pattern, they can typically regulate themselves, but they can't be regulated by someone else. They can't let themselves be regulated by someone else. Again, I'm an island, I got it, I don't need anyone else. A child with an anxious attachment pattern, they can be soothed by someone else. In fact, they can only be soothed by someone else, and they can't soothe themselves. And a child who has a disorganized attachment pattern can't be soothed by themselves or anybody else until they learn or they heal their brain down the road. But those children are most unable to be soothed by themselves or anyone else. They're under chronic stress. I want to talk briefly about the process of attachment. Alan Shore is a clinical psychiatrist and an attachment specialist and researches about regulation. He said the self-organization of the developing brain occurs in the context of a relationship with another self, another brain. And again, as I've said earlier, integrated regulated brains come from interacting with other integrated regulated brains, which is really important for us as adults who are raising kids or teaching kids or responsible for kids. The more regulated we are, the more we help this child develop their own self-regulation abilities. People who are in the world who cannot regulate themselves have problems with attention, mood, behavior, relationships, loads and loads of difficulty. They can't manage their focus. They can't manage their temper. Often folks will use any of the addictions, food, drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, shopping, any of the addictions to help regulate their systems, which work for a short time, but over time they cause more difficulties. So the ability to regulate our nervous system is critical to our functioning in the world, and that comes from healthy relationships. We flourish when we feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure. And we achieve this through attention to intentional building of relationships and through what's called attuned communication. Daniel Siegel talks about contingent communication, which is a critical component of the attachment process, which is critical to child development. And there's three pieces of contingent communication. First is that you have to perceive that something is being communicated. You have to notice that the child is communicating something that they want, that they need, something that's distressing. You have to be able to notice that. Second is you have to accurately perceive it, and you have to understand what's being communicated. Many parents, most parents of an infant, a pre-verbal infant, they can tell what this cry means, what that cry means. They can tell that this one's hunger, this one's tired, this one's, a dirty diaper, this one's that my sister's bothering me. The parents of prelingual kids who are really tuned into their kids can tell, they can perceive and understand what these different cries mean. So the second component of contingent communication is to accurately perceive and understand what's being communicated. And the third component is to respond in an appropriate and a timely manner. If the infant's communicating that their diaper's poopy and you can't smell it, and you think that they're hungry and you try and feed them, they're going to remain in distress. What we see with infants and with us as older folks is that when someone gets us, when they perceive what's going on and they get us and they respond appropriately, we calm, we settle. So when you figure out what that cry means from your infant or your child, and you accurately interpret it and you appropriately respond, they settle. When you misperceive it and you miss the mark and you don't respond appropriately and you don't get it, they remain stressed. So contingent communication is the ability to perceive that the child or infant is communicating something, to be able to accurately perceive and understand what's being communicated, and then to respond in an appropriate and timely manner. How we do this, there's a formula. Presence, resonance, and attunement equal trust, which then equals security. Secure attachment comes from a child being responded to appropriately, repeatedly, by a parent or a caregiver, where they develop a trust, a security that this person's going to get them, be there for them, take care of them. That when they have repeated experiences where the parent has proven that they're going to take care of them, that they're going to figure out what they need, they're going to provide for their needs, that child comes to trust that parent and develops a more secure attachment. When parents don't perceive them accurately, they don't respond, they don't get them, then they develop insecure patterns. It's important to know that secure attachment is not about getting it perfect. It's not about constantly being in tune and and exactly reading your child. It's not. In fact, we get out of sync with children. We don't understand them sometimes. We miss the cues. We feed them when we're supposed to change them. We tell them, oh, don't worry, it's okay, when there's a monster under their bed, and we just dismissed it. It happens. The issue is not perfect synchrony. The issue is repair. Repair is critical. And this happens in all of our relationships. We get out of sync. We misunderstand each other. We have conflicts. We step on each other's toes. We disappoint each other. We're human. The issue is not maintaining perfectly attuned connections all the time. It's about repair. That when I can quickly, timely notice that we're out of sync, or we're disconnected, or we're detached, and I can do what I need to repair that attachment, that builds that security in that child, or in my spouse, or in my students, that I'm going to reconnect, that it's okay when we get out of balance or out of sync with each other, that we're going to fix it. And when I do that repeatedly, the child, person, comes to trust me more. Again, it isn't about perfect chronic connection. It's about repair when we become disconnected. And the more we do that, the more we build a sense of security with the other and build a more secure relationship. In order to do that, we have to do presence, attunement, and resonance. I have to be present. I have to be mentally present. I have to be tuned into my child. Attunement is the ability, so presence, first and foremost, is the ability to be here, to not be on my cell phone or on my iPad or watching TV or thinking about my job or thinking about tomorrow. I have to be mentally present in order to provide contingent communication and promote secure attachment. If I'm not present, the child or other person experiences me as gone. They know I'm not getting them, that I'm not tuned into them. Attuned communication is where I can perceive what's going on inside of them. Attunement is the ability to tune in to the other person, to tune into the infant or the child. Humans are transmitters and receivers of energy. We send out energy which the other picks up, and we perceive energy from the other. When we are present and we tune into another person, we can perceive what's going on inside of them. We can tell if they're anxious, if they're calm, if they're hurt, if they're scared, if they're present or not present. But we have to be present in order to tune into them. And once we tune into them, we want to resonate with them. We want to be able to help them know that we get what's going on inside of them. And resonance doesn't mean if they're flipping out, I flip out, because then we've just got two dysregulated brains. Resonance means that I can feel their agitation or their anxiousness or their worry or their disappointment, and that I can express back to them that I get it, not just in words, but where they feel gotten and understood by me. What we do is we absorb that energy from a child or from another person, and we metabolize it. So if I'm sitting with a child who's anxious or enraged, I'm going to take on that energy and I'm going to metabolize it in my system, and I'm going to change it and transform it to something that's calming and compassionate and loving. And I'm going to send that out to the child. And that energy has the potential to calm that child. If they send me rage and I send them back irritation, rage, rejection, I am not resonating with them. I am not helping them to manage what's going on inside of them. So resonance is the ability to feel what they're feeling and to be able to send something out that helps them to basically manage what they're feeling. So again, the formula is presence, and resonance and attunement equal trust, which then translates into security. So just to close, a quote from Helen Keller: "Blindness separates people from things, and deafness separates people from people." People who are disconnected from other people, especially infants, suffer severe long-term consequences in their life. Our job, our responsibility, is to attach, to help them develop as secure attachment as possible, to give them the best chance in life as possible.